Chrissy Fediara of the Griffith University School of Medicine, Gold Coast in Australia. I'm also the president and founder of the OCI Foundation, an international NGO registered in both Nigeria and Australia. This ArOY Youth Health Campaign is an OCI Foundation's health initiative designed for Nigerian youths in the fight against breast and cervical cancer. We are going through a number of modules that's designed to help train the Nigerian teachers and other interested participants in preparing them for teaching this program in Nigerian senior secondary schools. This particular module gives us the rationale and justification for the high school approach. Why are we going to senior secondary schools and not to other institutions? Now, a number of things to be covered in this program, in this particular module. We're going to look at the general justifications for the ArOY Youth Health Campaign and why we are intervening in senior secondary schools. And we're going to look at the justifications for cervical cancers and then justifications for breast cancers, and then we'll summarize these justifications. Then there will be quizzes. Now, these quizzes are compulsory if you want to get a certificate, and that's the case for teachers and other people like Nigerian Youth Corpus who may want to teach in schools. But it's not difficult. The quizzes are designed to let you pass them easily. They're not designed to check your intelligence, but to make sure that you understand what we need you to understand. So even if you fail them, there will be a chance to redo them. Now, every single fact here is referenced. So that's the reference of a publication that we've used to prepare this program, this model. So let's start. So general justifications. Now, about 72.8% of Nigerians aged between 15 to 24 years are literate. So that means, about 3/4 of Nigerians go through senior secondary schools. They go through schools. So any school-based program will reach a majority of young adults in the country. So that is part of why we are doing this. We intend to reach as many Nigerians as possible. Now, again, most teenage participants in this program, beneficiaries of this program, will at some point in their lives attend higher institutions, become mothers and fathers, get employed, and get involved in wider community activities in their towns, in their families, in their local government areas, in their states, in their regions, and in the nation as a whole. Now, this means that they have many years and opportunities to pass on this knowledge to many others. So apart from teaching them and arming them now, these youngsters will have a lot of opportunities to pass this message to their children, to their grandchildren, to their parents, to their friends, to their schoolmates, to their work colleagues, and to many others. So the impact of empowering them will be multiplicative and will have long-term spillover effects in the societies concerned. So we are arming these people, but it's not going to just be limited to them. There will be a lot of benefits for the entirety of Nigerians. Now, let's look at the justifications for cervical cancer. Why did we choose this cancer, and why are we targeting high school students with it? Now, most cervical cancer cases in Nigeria present among women in their mid-30s. So I'm sure you're saying, so why then are we going to the teenagers? Yes, it affects those mainly. It manifests in the mid-30s. It doesn't mean it starts then, because most HPV infections, that's the human papilloma virus, that's the virus that triggers of cervical cancers. When a woman gets infected, it takes 10 to 20 years for this to get to full-blown cancer. So, even though it's coming up in the mid-30s, it would have taken 10 to 20 years. That means that the earliest HPV exposures to infections will probably be in the mid-teens or in the early 20s, before shortly after the age of 20. Now, this is consistent with the report. Given that HPVs are sexually transmissible, and given that the earliest exposures are in the mid-teens or thereabouts, reports show that the average age of sexual debut in Nigeria, first sexual experience among Nigerian females, is between the ages of 16 to 18 years, and that's the mid-teens. This is the same age when most of these girls are in the final years of their senior secondary school. So you see why we have to go there, because if we wait, they go into their 20s and majority of them would have been exposed to this cancer. And even when you empower them, then it's already too late. So another fact is that between 71 to 81% of females in Nigerian tertiary institutions, that's Nigerian undergraduates, are already sexually active. Therefore, any potential exposure to HPVs would have already occurred before they get into tertiary institutions, and any intervention in tertiary institutions would come late to many. Now, it's very important to note that only 15% of 16-year-old Nigerian women who are likely to be in their high schools are sexually active, 15.6% to be precise. So that means if we go early, only 15% are at risk of having, being lost to the intervention. We can go earlier, but they will be too young to understand. So that's why we have to strike a balance between what is realistic and what is timely. And that's why the ArOY Health campaign for cervical cancer is started in those in senior secondary schools. If we decide to wait till they are 20, about 51%, more than half of them are already sexually active. If we decide to wait till they're in tertiary institutions, about 80% of them are sexually active. So we have to intervene at the right time. And senior secondary schools, when they're in their mid-teens, when only 15% would have been exposed, will be the right time. Now, another set of justifications for cervical cancer intervention. So in high schools, before tertiary institutions and before they turn 20, is justifiable. It will be timely. It would, later interventions will be too late for many. So these things are very critical and very important that we note them. And it is the approach that we advocate in the ArOY Health campaign, the ArOY Health campaign. About 12% of cervical cancer cases in Nigeria occur in women under the age of 30. So it's not just that it's in the mid 30s. We still have cases occurring in those under the age of 30. So we need to act soon and fast. Now, unfortunately, research reveals that most young Nigerian women remain unaware of the associations between cervical exposure and cervical cancer. So, exposure to sexual activities trigger the HPV vaccination infections and ultimately lead to cervical cancer. But many Nigerians do not know about this. So, if we arm them early, we can get things right. The ArOY Health campaign is the only project designed to address this currently. Now, justifications for breast cancer. Why do we want to introduce breast cancer into the curriculum? Well, about nearly 1%, 0.8% to be precise, of cases occur in women under the age of 20 years or less. About 3.3% occur in those under the age of 25. So these are people, it could be 1%, but when you look at a population of about 200 million Nigerians, 50 million women, you're looking at tens of thousands of these Nigerians being exposed to this, if not in their millions. So we need to get something done and start early. In fact, the case has been reported in someone as young as 14 in Nigeria, breast cancer. So this risk is small but significant for young adults, partly because they don't know. In 2017, a study of Nigerian females in Nigerian high schools found that they have poor knowledge on breast cancer risk factors and early symptoms. Only 6.1% of them have practiced breast self-examinations, which we're going to talk about later. And then only very few know how to do this. So even though it's only 6.1% that have done it in the past, few know when to do it and few know how to do it. Only a fraction know how to do this. So given that breast cancer prognosis in younger patients is poor, so even though it's not common in the young ones, but it does happen. Now, when they do get it in the young age, the prognosis, the outcomes are very poor. So early screening and detection are vital in Nigeria, where no other functional preventive programs are in place. So we really have no option. All right. If we let things be, people who get it, majority will die. So we need to start early. And this is about the only option that will reach the majority of Nigerians. Such early detections are linked to a reduction in morbidities and mortalities, in injuries from the cancer and in deaths from the cancer. So a summary of the justifications. So just to summarize, to make sure we all capture and understand what we are talking about, in view of the discussions above, it becomes obvious that the duo of cervical and breast cancers have their roots in early adulthood, and that delaying enlightenment to mid or late adulthood will come late to many Nigerians, as exposure to irreversible risks might have occurred. The problem is of huge significance in most developing countries like Nigeria, with no organized or any all-encompassing or government-sponsored preventive programs, unlike the case you have in the developed world. So in Nigeria and other developing countries, it is huge because there's no other option of the government sponsoring these programs. At least for now, we know they are working on it, and we do hope they get to that point. But keep in mind that even at that stage, this program is complementary to whatever efforts they put in. So even though our targeted young women and even though targeted at young men and women, the ArOY Youth Health campaign will benefit every woman. Every single woman in Nigeria will benefit from this, of all ages, professions, ethnic, religious, or social orientation. And of course, the men will be part of it to back them up. And other women will be reached through the free OCI Savvy Breast mobile phone application. We've already talked about this before. And the fact is that through that app, every single Nigerian benefits, not just those in high schools. So it will also benefit every man, since every male must have a woman in his life. Be it your mother, your sister, your wife, your daughter, your granddaughter, your friend, your female associate. Every man has a woman. And by getting empowered early on, you should be able to help that woman save his or her life and save your own heartache, save your children from losing their mom early. We need to all get on board this program right now. This is the end of this particular presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Let us join hands to armor our youth. Let us do this while they are young. Let us do this for all of them. And let us do this right now for our families, for our states, and for our country. Thank you very much.